Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on KCOH TV, The Boost. You can find it at www.kcohradio.com. The Rutledge Perspective coming your way. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Tuesday morning and my favorite day of the week, Tuesday. And there's still so much going on, y'all. And so I even posted this morning and I said, you know what? Sometimes you just gotta show up even when you don't feel like showing up, because it's not about you. So here I am because it's about y'all. And I enjoy spending time with you guys on Tuesday. So let's do the few public service announcements first. And first, because it is important and it's important. Good morning, Carlsbad, California. Buenos dias. Good morning, Houston, Texas. The service for George Floyd is today. People are already there at Fountains of Praise. And so may his soul rest in peace. May his family find peace. May we all remember this person and this catalyst for the time that we're in now, that is a result of actions that are not new, that are systemic, that are hurtful and horrendous and inexplicable. And let us not sit in inaction or overwhelm. Let us honor the pain. Let us honor the frustration. Let us honor the anger. And let us continue to have a conversation. Let us continue to move into action. And let us continue to be the people we are called to be. And continue to speak truth to power. And if you haven't spoken truth to power, I can't think of a better time to do that. So with that, because it's a tough day, Jerry, man, it's a tough day. Okay, so census, still time to do your census. Please, 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 please do your census. Now more than ever, we need to make sure that we are all represented. We already have issues with gerrymandering and trying to suppress votes and trying to negate votes. You still need to get out and vote, but please do your census so we make sure that everyone is represented appropriately. Please, please, please do your census. You can do it online. And I still don't know, you know what? And that's my fault because I didn't check last week. There was a lot of stuff going on. So my commitment to you is to find out. I don't know if they are going to do some of the field people anymore, Jerry. I forgot to check and see if they're going to do that.
I did.
Coming out. Did you? Okay.
I have the census on with me, and they are going to do that.
Oh, good. Okay.
What they're saying right now, you can get it online.
Yes. Yeah. You can fill it out online. It's really easy. It takes maybe 10 minutes. So go fill it out online. But there will be census workers coming out. So good. Thank you, Jerry. Mm-hmm. See, partnership, man. Partnership. That's awesome. Okay. Vote. I got my vote necklace on again. Vote. Good morning, Odessa. Vote. Okay. Texas. You must be registered by Monday, the 15th of June, because we have some primary runoffs on July 14th. So you must be registered by Monday. If you are not registered, you need to go register. There is just no excuse for not being registered to vote. I am so sorry, but I need you to just figure that out. Go register to vote. And that is not about which party or whatever. I don't even care at this point. I just need people to vote. Just vote. Go vote. Go vote. Texas, please, June 15th. That is Monday. You must be registered by Monday. And then early voting starts the 29th of June. You have to if you're going to early vote, you have to do it in person. So early voting starts the 29th of June. And then the actual runoff election day is on July 14th. So please, y'all, vote. Because here's the other thing about this election year, 2020. We got all this craziness going on. We got COVID. We've got all the protests going on right now around how people are treated simply because of how they're born. And it's not just about the presidential election, although that is critical. But there are local and state elections that are also critical because it starts there. It starts with your school board, Odessa, Texas. It starts with your city council. It starts with your state congressional races. It starts with your governors. It starts there. It starts with all of those amendments and propositions and all of that stuff they put on the ballot. And quite frankly, if we're really talking, people are so worried about, voter suppression and gerrymandering and all this kind of stuff, which are very real and they're very important and they are just critical. And we have got to do something about these dang ballots. They are 400 pages long. Every time somebody writes a proposition, it's written in a way that you have to have a PhD to understand it. And nobody's going to read that whole thing, and people are not going to vote in a way that they necessarily want to vote because they haven't read it or understood the proposition. So that's where we really need to make some change. So all of you folks, again, speaking truth to power, all you folks putting together these new amendments, putting together new propositions, if you truly believe in what you want people to vote for, if you believe it's real, if you believe it's important, then you will write it in a way that people understand it. Because when you're doing it the way you're doing it now, it's shady. It's shady. You're doing it on purpose because you want to confuse people. So, if you really believe in what you're putting out there, if you really believe what you're saying is important, then you will write it in layman's English. People need to understand what they are voting for. And that a yes means yes and a no means no, or what have you, as opposed to the craziness we had on our ballot this past year in Texas around the state sales tax. State income tax, just insanity. So please vote. There's also the thing, I think they're going to do it again this year. I think I saw it online, Rock the Vote, which is awesome. So people are really paying attention. Jerry and I were just talking before, with all of this stuff going on, I personally, my advocacy, my activism is not, my personal activism is not an activism of marches and protests, but that's just me. That's me and my anxiety and my issue with crowds and all that. That's not where my gift is. However, I do have a platform, and I am someone who is adamant about educating myself to vote, educating myself around the people who are running, educating myself around the issues, and how can I then use that to help support other people. And so one of the things I was telling Jerry is I intend to go get trained so that I can help register people to vote. And that's how I'm going to be active.
Good.
That's how I'm going to be active. I'm going to do my part to get as many people as I can to be registered to vote. Because that's important, right? And then help with people saying, okay, look, do we need to get a bus, a train, a plane, an automobile, whatever, and then get people to the polls.
Yes.
We need to get people to the polls. So do what is in your power and what is in your spirit in order to be active, to make change. Because in order for us to make change, we got to show up. We got to show up. You can't make change while you're staying at home. Not really.
Kelly, I like what you said about your role is not so much to protest and to go out and to march, and that's many people's roles, but we all do have a role to play.
Yes.
And I like what you said about you having your own platform, and that's how you're going to get out and do what you do. And also you want to be trained in order to register the people to vote. What I saw Cravena Cloud do last night, they had registration set up at the memorial for George Floyd. And I appreciate that because I've also seen, and we were talking about, we have to be on media to do our promotions and our work. But there's sometimes when you're on social media, you see some stuff that be like, oh. And I've seen many people talking about, it don't matter if we vote, it doesn't make a difference if we vote. We doing the right thing, go out there, protest, tear it up, do this and this
Seriously?
and that. No, people still need to know that it's important to go vote. And my own family member was saying, why is everybody pushing voting right now? That ain't what we talking about. What? Come on, help them, Laurel.
Okay. Woosah. So here's the deal. And Leela, thank you. So you can verify whether or not you're registered. So please do that. One of those is to go to votesaveamerica.com/verify. votesaveamerica.com/verify. You can also go on to your local election board or registrar's website and see if you're registered to vote. So you can double check and make sure. Make sure you're registered. So to your point, Jerry, yes, we all have a role to play. And I got to tell you, I sit in awe. I sit in awe of especially some of these young people. Some of these young people who have organized these protests, these peaceful protests.
Peaceful.
And quite frankly, some people who are much more senior than me that are out there walking and who are saying, I cannot believe I'm having to march on this stuff again.
Wow.
Right? Because they've seen this before. Not exactly like this, but they've seen this before. And I am absolutely in awe of these people and supportive of these people who have that burn in them. And don't get me wrong, I'm still tired, I'm still angry, I'm still frustrated, but I'm now at a controlled burn.
Yeah.
A controlled burn. But it is important for you to find your voice, because those people who say it's not important to vote, I don't need to vote, it doesn't make a difference. And I'm going to try to say this in a way that is kind.
Shade, how you feeling?
I personally have original poll tax receipts from my grandparents. Poll tax receipts where we had to pay to vote. There are people that died, that were bitten by dogs, that had holes turned off, that there were people who sacrificed their lives in order for us to have a say. So even if you don't think your vote actually counts in the outcome, you need to get off your rear end and get to a poll, because people died for you to be able to do it. So I'm not hearing that. I am not hearing it. I have zero tolerance for it doesn't make sense, I don't think it matters. I am not hearing that. Because if nothing else, you owe it to the people who lost their lives to give you the opportunity. Because quite frankly, they lost their lives for you to give your opportunity to sit on your butt. So you need to get off of it and go vote. Period. The end. Sermon over. Because it's time. It's just time. It's just time. Because you can't sit back and complain and say, I don't know, I don't understand, this isn't right, and you sat home on election day. And I had somebody have an argument with me the other day that said, all those people who say if you don't vote, you don't have a voice, that's not true, because part of being here means that I always have a voice. I'm like, okay, well, fundamentally, I guess you do have a voice, fundamentally. However, if you didn't participate in the process, then I'm not so sure your opinion matters, because you didn't make it count. So you're just spouting all this diatribe and your opinion and all this kind of stuff, but you have not participated in the process to actually affect change. So I don't know why I should actually spend my time having a conversation with you if you're not participating.
Lord, when you said that, it reminded me of living in Prairie View when I was going to Prairie View, and we would go to Wilder, Texas, to Texas Burger, and everybody had to pay me some gas money, and if you paid the gas money, you had a decision, you had a choice to make where we were going. Right. But if you put no gas in, you could just sit back there and shut up.
Right. You pay to play.
Yeah.
And that's so funny. I just I don't know. I just have so little tolerance for and there are a few things that I'm just really kind of black or white about, and voting is just one of them for me. It's just one of them for me. And I love voting day. Sometimes I register early because I got stuff going on, but I love to go stand in line. I want my sticker, because there have been a few times when I go and vote and they ran out of stickers. Yeah. Salty. Woo! My attitude was so bad because I want my sticker that says I voted.
Yeah.
Because it's important to me. It is important to me to let people know that I participated in the process.
Yes.
So it is really critical to me that you do whatever you need to do to go vote, and that you take somebody with you or help somebody get there, something. I know last year or the last few elections, the rideshare apps have given free rides to polls. So there really is no excuse now. There really is no excuse to vote.
Now, can you drive home again? Because many people probably don't understand the importance of not just voting for the president or knowing who you want, because that is a thing that people, it don't make a difference of why we need to know. Yeah, because look, things get impacted at home, y'all. Yes, we've got all of these federal laws, and in Texas it's a little bit different. Let me use California as an example. Yes, there are a lot of federal laws that the entire land has to follow. Equal employment, what kind of paid time off you have to have, paid sick time, all these kind of things. But then states and cities make additional laws, additional regulations that you have to follow. And so if you are not involved in the process locally, that federal stuff is great, but it's the local stuff that's going to impact you on a day-to-day basis. What are your taxes?
Where can your kids go to school or not go to school? What kind of money is being spent on infrastructure? That happens locally. Yes, there's federal funding for infrastructure, but this decision on what's going to be done when, that happens locally. So it is important to vote in the presidential election. Absolutely, no question. And make sure you go all the way down your ballot, because you are voting for school board, you are voting for city council, you are voting for state governments, state representation, you are voting for land commissioner and agriculture commissioner, and you're voting for all of these things, sheriffs, right? Every vote counts. You are putting people in place who are making decisions for you. So at a minimum, you need to at least have had a voice in who gets in there. Even if you don't win, at least you have a voice. Mm-hmm. And then if you're really still upset, how about you find out when those city council meetings are and go show up? Yeah. Because most of them are open meetings. Your school board meetings, all those meetings are open to public unless they're having an executive session. So why don't you maybe just decide to go show up there? Find out what it takes to get on the agenda. Find out what it takes to be able to present your opinion. And get educated and get prepared and go do that. Just go do that. Because this is not a time, we've talked about it in the context of business. We've talked about it in the context of career. We've talked about it in the context of just leadership. Now is not the time to be quiet. Whatever being loud looks like for you. It's not the time to be quiet. It's just not. We can't impact change by being silent. You can only impact change by saying something, by doing something, by being in action. And that's really, 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 really critical. Really critical. And if you remember, in many cases, there were so few votes that separated the winner and the loser. Yeah. So think how many people, think about the change in the outcome of so many election results in the last big election had people just gone to vote. So those of you who said my vote doesn't matter, it mattered last time, and see what we got.
You know what, when you think about that, I think about the NFL football players who are saying now, we're not going to take this, we're not going to go with this systemic racism in the league. And quickly, they started changing their tone because they recognize and realize we make up the majority of the league, of the football thing. So your vote does count because we have more power, honestly.
We do.
Than we know.
We do. And so here's the deal. So Jerry and I were talking, I'm like, I try not to make this a political platform, but I do have an opinion and a perspective on things. That's what's called the Rutledge perspective. And the thing I was going to talk about today was really kind of this culture of inclusion and what that looks like. And bringing up the NFL is a really good example. And not just the NFL, but a number of organizations. Because on the one hand, you have organizations like Ben and Jerry's. Yeah. And Ben and Jerry they are always on the forefront of, this is not right, we're not doing this. And we're putting our money and our action where our mouth is. And I'm trying to find that pecan resist ice cream. I haven't found it yet. And I'm not a big Ben and Jerry fan just because he is, and if people don't know his story, one of the founders has issues with taste. And so that's one of the reasons why their ice creams are so rich. Like if you eat a Ben and Jerry's ice cream versus another, the flavors in Ben and Jerry's and how they have so much stuff in their ice cream is because one of the founders doesn't have, like he needs additional flavor for him to be able to taste it. I can't remember the name of the disorder. And so that's why theirs are so rich and so flavorful and so much flavor. So it's almost too much for me. I'm not a big, really sweet person anyway. But they stand, right? They always stand. They have no problem with standing. And then you have the NFL. And I'm a West Texas girl. I'm a football girl. I love me some football. And I haven't watched a football game in I don't know how long. And I'm not going to get into the whole kneeling versus marching and flag versus not flag. I'm just not going to get into all that. But what I will say is this. What do you really stand for? Because the response to the NFL, from my perspective, was a response to help preserve economic viability. That's all that was.
Yep.
We now see that we might actually start losing money.
Come on now, break it down.
We might actually start losing money, so we probably need to say something to make people believe that we have been changed. We have been enlightened. We kind of get it. We woke now. Yeah, I'm not there. I'm not there because, and to your point, Jerry, I think for so many years we have not really understood the power of our dollar and the power of our impact. And I think I said it on this show, or I may have said it in my live, I don't remember. When I talked about the old man that was at my grandmother's funeral, who talked about, we lost something when we lost our neighborhoods.
Yeah. When
we no longer had to rely on ourselves and our communities to thrive. We lost something. And I saw a post the other day that said, they just posed a question. They said, okay, so what would happen if all of the black athletes, and I use that intentionally, not African American, black, because this is about color, not ethnicity. If they all decided to go to an HBCU and not a Division I school to play, what happens? Because Bama, Roll Tide, that's going to look awfully different if all those folks decide to go to a Howard or a Tennessee State or a PV. And I don't mean just football. I mean all sports. What would happen? And somebody posed the question. I thought, that is a very interesting question.
Let me do this real quick because we forgot to mention your people that's
yes,
and I don't want to forget. New Jersey is tuning in. Is Bayvon? Is that? I don't know if I spelled
New Jersey.
Right. New Jersey, St. Louis, Missouri is in. Brooklyn, the Bronx, New York is in, and Dallas, Texas just chimed in.
Awesome.
On this. And Annette Phillips from Brooklyn, the Bronx, says, we must control where we spend our money.
I agree. And that's really important. It's really important because at the end of the day, right, wrong, or indifferent, money makes the world go round. Money makes the world go round. I talk often about, and I claim, and I have an intent of having a 7-figure business. I don't want a 7-figure business because I need 12 houses and 4 cars and Gucci and Prada and all that kind of stuff. That stuff means nothing to me. What's having a 7-figure business means to me is the ability to make an impact. Not only to make an impact on those things that are important to me in the area of education. So my foundation that is coming, All Kids Can Learn. Not only to make an impact on education and the quality of education, because no kid should be hungry at school and no teacher should have to come out of their pocket to put stuff in their classroom. Okay, I can't be calm around that, so no one should have to do that. But the other piece is, unfortunately, sometimes in these bigger organizations, the only way you actually get a seat is to be able to write a big enough check that they can't ignore you.
That is true.
Especially big institutions that are trying to make big change. And when we look at some of these institutions and some of the things they are trying to make and where we want to spend our dollars, and it's not about getting into the whole charter school versus, vouchers and all that kind of stuff, because at the end of the day, it is about ensuring that those who need and have a right to a free education have a free quality education. You shouldn't have to be rich to be educated.
Right.
That should not be a requirement. And that also means that we have to hold ourselves accountable to ensuring that the folks that are in the classroom teaching our kids are the best and the brightest. We shouldn't accept less than that, and we often do. And we should be honest enough with ourselves, and I say this in business, I'll say it in education, I'll say it everywhere. We have to be honest enough with ourselves to know when we've got someone who's just not a fit or not capable. So my friend Kim, and I encourage you guys to read this. I did a podcast with her, so you can listen to my interview with her. But she was just interviewed for Forbes magazine. She is the chief people officer for WW, formerly Weight Watchers. She's incredible. She's got an MBA. She's a lawyer, originally from Tennessee. She's just amazing. So go look at this article. But in the article, it talked about, Black executives in corporate America, among other things, and asked her kind of her experience. And a lot of the things that Kim talked about, we have all experienced, those of us who have been women, and in particular women of color in corporate America in senior level positions. And part of that is making a way for people to come up with you and behind you. So paving that way. And there's also an important piece of that around sponsorship and mentorship. And I don't mean friendship, I mean mentorship, because a mentor isn't going to tell you they just love you. A mentor is going to pull your coattail and say, that didn't make any sense.
That's good.
Or you need to go get this done better. Or you need to go learn this. That's what a real mentor is going to do.
Yeah.
And so in order for us to do better, we have to know better. Because when you know better, you do better. And that means not only speaking truth to power, but also speaking truth to ourselves. That when we see somebody who is not doing the job they need to do, who is not being honest and forthright, who's doing all the stuff that undermines the ability of everyone coming out behind them, we got to call that out too. Even if they look like us. Because we are reluctant, because there's so much negative said about our capability, our competence, all of this stuff, that we are reluctant to call that out on our own. But I tell you what, if we can't call it out, we can't be mad when somebody else does.
That's true.
So we need to call it like we see it, and not only call it out, but then we need to actively try to make a difference. If you see someone struggling, what can you do to help them? Don't just let somebody flounder. Because here's the deal. Whether you are in administration and education, whatever that is, you are responsible, and people look to you to make a difference. And they look to you whether or not you like it. I mean, you're always being watched. I will never forget, I don't even know what year it was, but I was a senior HR executive, and I was about to go on a long trip. My family and I, we were going for 14 days to Europe. And so we had a town hall. And in our town hall, I don't know why I turned my notifications off. We would be in a town hall, and it would be broadcast to all the multiple locations, right? So you're on TV, you're on, you're seeing, people are seeing you. And I was leaving right after this town hall. It was in Pittsburgh. And I had just had my hair braided. Now, I wore my hair natural all the time, but I'd never had my hair in braids. And so I wore my hair braided, and we had this town hall. And then I went on my trip. When I came back from my trip, I had so many people come up to me. I didn't say so many. I had several people come up to me, happened to be Black women, who said, thank you. And I'm like, thank you for what? They said, number one, you show up, you're honest, you're authentic, you don't try to make stuff up, you answer questions honestly. If you don't know, you say you don't know. That's just how I am. But you showed up with your hair in braids, and you looked great, and now I have the courage to do that. And what's so poignant about that, folks, is in 2020, I think the first one happened early 2020, maybe late 2019, there are states that have had to make laws that say it's illegal to discriminate for hairstyle. Think about that. In 2020, I could have an offer rescinded if it was even made to me because I wear my hair like this. Got nothing to do with my capability, my education, etc. As my friend Kim said in her article, you walk in a room and people they don't even think about the fact that you could be the most senior person in the room. Or heaven forbid you actually run in the meeting. Or in her case, that you actually have a JD and all this experience. Because all they see when I walk in a room is this Black face. This Black female face. So when we start talking about culture of inclusion, you're looking at these messages that are coming out from organizations, you need to dig a little bit deeper. Now, I'm not saying that people can't change. I'm not saying that organizations can't change, and that sometimes it takes something as dramatic as what has happened to get people to wake up. That is absolutely true, and it does happen. And we are not stupid. So it may be that they've now come out and said we were wrong and we should have listened. That's great. But I want to see what you're doing 6 months from now.
Right.
I want to see what you're doing 2 years from now. I want to see what your senior level organization looks like. Because if you're telling me you get it and there's nobody that looks like me that's on your board, or nobody that looks like me in your senior executive ranks, no, you don't. Because, and when I ask you, if you tell me we can't find them, we really are going to have a problem. Because that's not true. Because from my perspective, from my experience, the lack of senior level leadership that is made up of people of color is not that you can't find them. It is not a resource issue. It is a pipeline issue. It is not a resource issue. It is a pipeline issue. The most educated people right now, the most educated group right now is African American women. So you can't tell me you can't find them. It is about people coming into an organization and somehow continuing to get weeded out as they move up. That's about sponsorship. That's about allyship. That's about access to opportunity. That's about education. That's about being put on the best projects. That's about access to the best partners. That's what that's about. It's not about capability. It's about access. Same thing with education. It's not about capability. That's about access. My dad used to say all the time, he said, because my dad was in administration, and we have these discussions. We talk about teachers and some really great teachers and teachers who taught honors classes and all this kind of stuff. And he would get really irritated sometimes. He said, you know what? All you folks that are teaching honors classes and telling me how great a teacher you are and all this kind of stuff. He said, show me where you've been able to change the life and teach that kid who may not get to eat for 2 days.
That's good.
Who's going home from school and having to work a job to support his family. Who may be going home and doesn't know if he's going to wind up with a broken bone or something else. Who may or may not even have a parent at home. You teach that kid and then tell me how great a teacher you are.
That's good.
And it's not about capability or difficulty. It is about access and connection. Because if you can teach that kid, that means you can meet people where they are. That means you have a heart for saying all kids can learn. And I am not going to discriminate in the giving of my service based on someone's socioeconomic status. And it's the same thing when we talk about culture of inclusion.
Yeah.
If you are building a business, if you are running a department, and you are giving all of this lip service to diversity, equity, inclusion, I need you to show me who's on your team. I need you to show me who you put on projects. I need you to show me who you promote. I need you to show me who you hire. And I need you to show me how you conduct your business, which enables all of those people who don't look like you to fully participate in the organization. That their ideas are heard, that they're not, sitting at the end of the table, that they are not dismissed. Because I have sat in that room multiple times and been dismissed. I went to an event, and I won't call out the organization, but I went to an event that was theoretically about increasing the number of women on boards of directors, theoretically. And this was a room of, 150, 200 people. And there were maybe 10 people that looked like me, 10. No one on the panels that looked like me. And in one of the conversations, there were 2 women on the stage, one of whom had been on boards for nonprofit, and one had been on nonprofit and for-profit boards. And the question was posed to them, so would you rather be, or what do you think is most difficult? Being the only woman on the board, or maybe being one of, just 2 or 3 on the board? Which is a very interesting question. And the woman who had been on nonprofit and for-profit boards, her response was, it's really hard to say because it depends on the board. Because even if you're the only one of whatever it is, if it's a board that's a progressive board, a board that is really invested in the business, and you come and you bring something to the table and they recognize it, it doesn't matter if you're 1 or if you're 1 of 10, because you're valued for having been on the board. There's an assumption that you are there because you add value. The other person said, well, I really prefer not to be the only one, because if you're the only one, now listen to what I'm about to say. This was just in 2019. Because if you're the only one, then, you know, it's kind of like being the only black or the only Hispanic. You know, they just assume that it's just a token.
Mm.
And I thought to myself, now, one, did she really just say that in this room? Did she really just say that? You know, so it come and you could hear, you could hear a pin drop in the room, like crickets. Because I think all of her people were kind of like, whoop, okay, we probably should have coached her not to say something like that.
Right.
And then she tried to fix it, so it just got worse and worse and worse. So at the end of this, we had these round tables. And I said, well, so my question is this. I said, because I've sat in these boards, and I've said something, and I've put something forward and had it dismissed, and only to have someone right next to me say the exact, not even kind of the same thing, the exact same words, and it'd be seen as genius. Mm-hmm. And there was a guy sitting next to me. He said, well, you know, it could be just because you were new on the board and they were just trying to make sure you understood. And I looked at him and I said, very calmly, I actually really do understand the difference between trying to help someone who's new and inexperienced versus dismissing someone. I actually am very clear on the difference. Mm-hmm. And I'm very appreciative when I am new and someone is trying to aid me in ensuring that I'm communicating the appropriate way for that particular culture. That's not what this was. And this person happened to get up right after that, got up and left. So I asked the question, I said, you know, I'm sitting here in this and I think it's really important to increase representation on boards of directors because there's so much proof about what inclusion really means. Not just diversity, but inclusion. And yet I'm sitting here in this meeting and my question to you guys is this really about increasing the number of all women on boards or not? And I just left it right there. I didn't elaborate. I didn't say anything else. And no one was really able to respond, which is what I anticipated. And I had someone come up to me after that and say, thank you so much for saying something. You know, we really do need to address that, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I appreciate it. I said, I didn't say it for kudos. I said it because it's important to call things like they are. Mm-hmm. So when you are trying to decide, if you're the NFL, if you're Ben and Jerry's, if you're Hobby Lobby or whoever, who are you really? And how do you show up? And how are you moving your business forward? And do you really understand the power of not only diversity, but inclusion? The real power of that. It's been proven that there is power and there's greater innovation. There's greater impact, positive impact to the bottom line when you have an inclusive and diverse organization. It's been proven. It's not just me. It's not just opinion. It's fact. And the other side of that coin is, once you know who you are, own that. Mm-hmm. So if you truly believe that it is not in your best interest to be diverse, then just don't be and don't pretend that you are.
Right.
Because the worst thing you can do is pretend that you are, put that face on, you get people in there, and then you have all of this attrition. So even if you don't believe it from a moral perspective, think about your money. Mm-hmm. Because the amount of turnover you're going to have, the amount it's going to cost you to continue to replace people, and the amount of times you're going to have that conversation, that's a lie, but it's a conversation that you say, see, we tried and they just didn't work out. But you didn't. So just own it. And if you truly are someone in an organization, a department who understands and believes in the power of inclusion, the power of equity, the power of diversity, then be sure that your actions support that. And if you don't know, ask. And if you don't understand, find somebody who does. What is that old saying? Better ask somebody.
Better ask somebody.
Better ask somebody.
Now, isn't it true in most cultures and places there are people who are not going after particular jobs? Let's say if we have a chicken place down the street, mm-hmm. It's not that they're being racist. That's not who's going for the job.
So there's a couple of things, right? There are, you can't force people to apply for your jobs. That is absolutely true. However, if you're following the EEOC guidelines and you're one of those businesses that has to actually report on your activity, one of the things you have to report on is what are you doing to increase the diversity of your applicant pool. Mm-hmm. So where are you posting it? You know, how are you letting people know that the jobs are available? Do you have an employee referral program? right? Are you encouraging? Do your postings say we are an equal employment opportunity? We encourage veterans to apply, right? We encourage those in underserved communities to apply, or whatever, right? What do you have in your process that encourages people who may not know who you are, may not find you, to participate? Because that shows, yeah, we get it. Not only do we get it, but we want to do something about it. And that's about inclusion, right? So no, you can't force people to apply. You absolutely cannot, right? But you can put things in place that give you a better opportunity to have a more diverse pool of people to choose from. And then you should have, if at all possible, a diverse group of people interviewing them. Do panel interviews if you want to, or not, right? But multiple people that impact that can interview them, so that there are multiple different views of how someone interviews or how they might interact with the department. Did you have a question?
Yeah, with all this going on makes me think about something, because with all of this is going on, there is a thin line of what we have to say, even in the branding and the mindset of a thing. I think about this radio station has always been promoted as the oldest black radio station in Texas. So do we rebrand that thought of saying the oldest black radio station in Texas?
So that's a very interesting question, right? Because there is branding in order to be accessible, and then there is fact and truth in branding. Because by saying it's the oldest black radio station, that's just true.
It's true.
That's just truth, right? And so that doesn't mean you stop saying that. There may be some things around it that says, yes, here's the history of KCOH, right? This is the oldest black radio station in Houston, and we are an urban station. We, all in Texas, and we have the highest, and it's on the webpage. We have the highest urban, what is that? TSL. I always forget what the total listening time, right? Yes. And that broadens it a little bit more, right? We broadcast live over all platforms. We are global in our reach. That then broadens it, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it is.
That's good.
You know what I mean? So there's nothing that says in trying to be accessible that you don't have to tell your truth. Because then somebody shows up at the station, they're like, wait, where are we? This is third, what? Right?
Right.
Because it just is.
Right.
It just is. So when you're talking about who you are and who you want to be and where you want to be and what your culture is, you still got to own who you are. If you are an organization of 5,000 people and you got 2 people of color in your organization, you just need to own that. And when you go recruit, if you go to job fairs, if you go to all of these things, don't just take the 2 black people or the 4 women or the 5 whatever, insert category here. Don't just take them to show up, because people aren't stupid. They're going to go on Glassdoor. They're going to go on your website. They're going to see what pictures you put up, all this kind of stuff. You can't hide who you are. You can try, but it doesn't stay hidden for long. What's done in the dark always comes to the light.
Yeah.
So just be true. And I remember when I was working for a firm, and I was young, so my response to this was probably less than professional. But I remember they were like, oh, we need you to show up at Texas A&M and go to this recruiting thing. And I said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, it's really important to go. I said, why? Because, we're really trying. I said, nope. Wrong answer. Because, one, we got this issue. If you're at A&M or you're at UT, you automatically get a job, which is already a problem for me, because we got U of H and HCC and, TSU and all these schools right here in Houston. So I already got an issue that the only people you feel are capable are at UT and A&M. So I already got that problem. But then you're going to send me to A&M that has a history, and you want me to pretend that we are progressive enough that my showing up is indicative of how broadly we are willing to have people here. I said, because I've been sitting in those meetings when we decide who gets laid off and not, who's on which job and not, and that is not what's happening. That is not what's happening. Now, I'm saying it very kindly and professionally now. That's not what I say when they ask me, right? But it's indicative of that whole idea of, one, you got to speak your truth and you got to stand up. And organizations, you got to be honest about who you are. Especially if you think about right now, trying to figure out how you're going to be inclusive, how you're going to show up, how are you taking care of your people? Because we've got COVID-19, folks trying to figure out still how to take care of their family. Am I sick? Are they sick? How do we keep them safe? What about PPE, mask, no mask? There was just a thing this morning from the World Health Organization that contradicted wearing masks and asymptomatic versus pre-symptomatic. Don't nobody know what that means. Nobody's thinking about pre-symptomatic versus asymptomatic. It was just insane. And someone even came out and said that was the worst communication they could have come out with. Oh yeah, it was a mess.
Did they say what pre-symptomatic is?
So what they said was the basis of the communication was, we do not necessarily believe any longer that a lot of the spread is from asymptomatic people, but it could be from pre-symptomatic people. And so then they tried to come back and fix it. And essentially what they were saying is, if you're having like early symptoms, but maybe you just don't think that's COVID, you know, a cough, a fever, all that kind of stuff, you are probably still spreading.
Okay.
But if you've gone this long and you truly have no symptoms, you are asymptomatic, the likelihood of you spreading COVID is probably pretty small. That was the point of what they were saying. It was just a horrible communication because now everybody's confused.
Right.
Do we wear a mask? Do we not? Asymptomatic, you know. So start with using asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic. What, you know, nobody's listening to that.
Right.
Or paying attention. Now everybody's confused. So we've got all that stuff going on with COVID. Then we've got people who are additionally tired, frustrated, angry, confused, upset with all of this stuff that has been happening for generations. This didn't just happen. It just happened that this one got recorded and put on blast. So people dealing with the anxiety and the worry and the frustration from COVID. Now you got people, and a particular group of people, dealing with the fatigue and anger and grief of George Floyd and his murder, and how we deal with that and what that means on a grander scale. And you are having to lead this organization. You as a leader, you as a business owner are having to lead this organization. You are having to figure out how to make people comfortable that it's safe to come to work, period. Now on top of that safety of just being in the workplace, now you got to make sure that people feel like they can show up when they look like me. And you don't know, maybe, how they've been showing up every day and just suppressing that. How they have been having to fix their face or fix their words or get really calm or not be seen as aggressive as opposed to just passionate. Because see, with us, it's aggressive. How they've had to just kind of tamp down what they're feeling and what they think so that it is acceptable and fits into this organization. And now they're tired. They're tired and frustrated and angry and grieving and upset. So now as a leader, you got these two things now layered on top of each other. One that's been around a very, very long time, you just may not have been as aware of it, that has now come to the forefront on top of this other safety thing. That was me. Oh. On top of this other safety thing. So, and you got to figure out how to ensure your culture is accepting of all of that you're paying attention to the mental and physical well-being of your employees as a whole, and your mental and emotional well-being of employees who are in this underrepresented, underserved, oppressed demographic and have been for generations. And one way you do that is you dig deep into your compassion, and you dig deep into your honesty and be realistic in saying you don't know. You don't know. You may not know what to say. You may not know what to do. And that is okay. Again, like I said last week, don't ask somebody if they're not okay because they're not okay. But you can ask what you can do.
There are many that have resonated what you just said about pile up after pile up after pile up, but still performance.
Yes.
There are many of us who have still had to perform under extreme pressure. And it may not look like you're under extreme pressure. I'll use me for example. I can come in here on Facebook Live, turn that live on, and it's showtime at the Apollo.
Showtime,
I gotta
right?
I gotta dance, I gotta do what I gotta do. But I've had to dance through a difficult transition with all of these changes, people wanting to come back in, me having to make sure everything is safe, that we're not going to spread something to one another. You over there with a mask on, I'm over here with a mask on, making sure everything is where it needs to be. But many people resonated with what you said because I don't think we get the totality of everything
Right.
that has happened. And I was telling somebody, they were like, I just want to come and do a show. Listen, you're worried about just coming in playing some music and bouncing around and doing a show. And we're considering how we're making sure the bills are paid, that the lights are still on.
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
not just about you coming to
Right.
do one show.
Right.
It's about, will we have a building?
Yeah.
And I think that's where many business owners are
Yeah.
and leaders. Just
Yeah.
because you see something still standing
Right.
doesn't mean they're not
Right.
under pressure
Right.
to keep it standing.
Right.
How do you work through that?
Right.
Because you did a video the other day that was so amazing to me. You said, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
How do
I'm
you
not.
work through that?
You know, and it's interesting that you say that, Jerry, because it goes back to the question you asked a minute ago about, or earlier, about what we do and us acknowledging the power that we have. And here's what I would say to my Black kings and queens. We are stronger than we believe.
Mm-hmm.
And we have proven that strength. We have proven that strength because many of us show up every day as the only one, or the one of very few, and we perform. In fact, we outperform only to be seen as equal. We do it every day.
Every day.
So we are not weak. We are not incompetent. We are not incapable. And in some cases, we very much have imposter syndrome, right? Where we think, and imposter syndrome is basically, we show up like this really strong, executive, and we know what we're doing, but inside we're like, ooh, maybe I don't know that. Maybe I'm not right.
Yeah.
Maybe I can't, because that's all the noise, the head trash, as my trainer says, all that head trash that gets in the way of us just doing what we know to do. And so I would say when we think about how we do that, part of that is continuing to dig deep and know that this didn't happen overnight and it's not going to change overnight.
Mm-hmm.
It just isn't. It just isn't. It isn't because this is the kind of stuff that's hard. That's why it's been this way for so long. Because not only do we need to address some of our own biases and anger at what's been going on for so long, because many of us are very, very angry as well at the injustice. But those who haven't had the same experiences also have to be willing and open to address their own. And it is very difficult as humans to see our own faults. Not only to see them, but to acknowledge them and then to have the strength to do something about them.
Mm-hmm.
And so the glass half full side of me, the compassionate, objective side of me says, we all just need some grace. We all just need some grace because this is not easy.
Right.
And I believe that there are many more people, multiple times more people who want systemic change, who may not recognize the systemic racism, the way things have been built over generations, but understand that they want to know and how can we make things different. There are many, many more people on all sides of this conversation that want to see change than there are on the extremes that are either trying to completely bust it up, which I think is not only irrational, but not helpful, or those who want to absolutely keep it exactly the same because it protects what they want. Those are the extremes. And unfortunately, the people on the extremes, on both ends of the extremes, are the ones that are the loudest. It's generally the people in the middle that don't speak as much, that aren't as loud.
Mm-hmm.
Until I think today, which is why I have some hope. Because I believe what we're seeing is many more people who have traditionally just kept their opinions to themselves and have decided, okay, now it's time to say something. Because the conversation has been hijacked by the extremes.
Yeah. And
you cannot have productive conversation and productive action if the only people talking are the ones at the extreme.
Yes.
Because the people at the extremes are never going to agree. Ever. Never, ever, ever, never. They're never going to agree. So in order to have some kind of conversation that is productive, in order to develop cultures of inclusion, of valuing differences in opinion, differences in experiences, In order to have people appreciate that my experience is my experience and you do not have the right to tell me my experience was wrong or that I misunderstood it. In order for those kind of conversations to happen, all of the people in the middle who are willing to listen to understand, not listen to respond, have to be much more vocal and much more present. And I think that's what we're seeing, which gives me hope. It's not just the extremes anymore. And in fact, those in the extremes are being called on their extremism. And we've not seen that before. Not to this degree. And so while I am still frustrated, and I'm still angry, and I'm still irritated, and I'm still emotional, I am hopeful. Because we haven't seen that kind of collaboration and connection and willingness to stand by so many people before. And that gives me hope.
Let me ask this question. Do you believe that we talk about the black dollar and we're talking about keeping the money in the communities and doing business with one another? I know when I first started working here years ago, I was like, yeah, I buy black, but if I don't like it, I'm going to go where I want to go and do what I want to do. You can't tell me what to do. Okay, if your attitude is nasty, I don't care if you're black, white, Chinese, or whatever.
Right.
But I think now, because of what we are in and what we're dealing with, of course, my mindset is, let's spend this black dollar. Let's work together. But we also need to make sure we're educating one another, to make sure that we're training.
Right.
Customer service needs to still be good. I still want it right. I don't care if we're the same color, but I still want it right. But I want to do business within our communities because I believe that just as the NFL players, and I said it earlier today, nobody knows how much you brought to the table until you pick up the table and leave.
Right.
Because you don't really know how essential you are to something.
Right.
And then you are the table.
Right.
So if you pick up your table, ain't nobody eating. So
right.
How do we get to that point? Do you think that this is now the movement we need to be focused on in the black community of really working together?
You know, here's what's interesting about that. And I saw somebody post this the other day. Yes, I believe we need to spend more money in the black community. I do believe we need to do that. I believe we need to put our money where our mouth is. And that is spending on education, spending on products, spending on services. But we need to spend it there. And I saw somebody post this the other day that said, I really want to spend money with you, but don't come at me crazy. So I still need it to be quality.
That's right.
Quality product, quality service. This is not our past to be half-stepping, trifling mess. Right? So the other side of that coin is, this is also, I mean, the window is wide open. This is your opportunity to make a difference. And if this is really what you want to do, go open your business. Who is it? Killer Mike? Was it Killer Mike that said we need to start buying up blocks? Right? We need to start buying up communities. If you are really invested in this and you want to invest in our community, then we also need to invest in making sure that those business owners understand how to run a business. That our business owners understand what customer service is. And when you're coming in and your attitude is all funky and you're half looking at people and you're not speaking to folks and all that kind of stuff, you are representing the business you're working for. Stop it. If you're not okay with what you're doing, you do have a choice. You can go find something else to do. And business owners don't get so caught up in, well, that's family and that. You're running a business. That's one of the 5 biggest mistakes that leaders make, treating everybody like family. Because family, you don't get to, well, you might get to choose some of your family, but most of your family you don't get to choose. They just are your family, your blood relatives anyway. But you get to choose who works for you. And if the people that are working for you, even if they look like you, are not representing your business the way your business should be represented, they don't need to work for you. Period. The end. I am not being ugly. I'm not being not compassionate. That's just business.
Period.
Period. Right? That's just business. And so we do need to look at how we continue to bolster our communities, how we continue to spend our dollar to build up our communities, to build up our businesses, to build up our services, to teach our people how to do those things well. And we also need to hold ourselves accountable. We need to hold ourselves accountable to do business the right way. Because we sometimes do not. I won't say we always do not. Because there are some really exceptional business people. But we need to stop making excuses for those who aren't.
I like what you said earlier about mentor. A mentor is not just going to pat you on the back and tell you good job. They're going to get you together, because there's a well-known restaurant here many people go to and they say they love the food, but the service is horrible and the people are mean. But yet it's always packed.
Always packed.
But why? So how do we change that? Because if we're saying to everybody else, get on social media, you talk about how rude they were, how long the wait was, but the lines are always packed, that's an oxymoron here.
Yeah. What you're saying is, I'm okay with being treated that way.
And we wouldn't let another race do us like that. Why are we doing each other like that? And that's not being a sellout to say this is horrible service.
No. I am a believer that it is important to call out exceptional work and exceptional service. Because very rarely do you see when somebody says, oh my God, this is fantastic. Go see so-and-so. Go see. So when I go to a restaurant or something, even when I'm out of town, I try to get the person's name that was exceptional. If I do a review, I try to call them out, all that kind of stuff. And I'm also going to put you on blast when you jack it up. Mm-hmm. But I believe in being balanced, because people are very quick to complain when they don't like something. But very few people take the time to pump up when something is good. And so if we truly believe that we are going to continue to spend our dollars where it makes the biggest impact, that we want to impact our communities, then we won't be okay with poor service and poor business either. Because we can't expect other people to not be okay if we're okay. It's just important, y'all. We have to be consistent. We have to be consistent. Okay, that went fast. That hour went fast. We have to be consistent, and we have to be honest about who we are and what we want and how we are going to really move this conversation forward in a way that's constructive and active. That's the only way we're going to make change. And with that,
everyone is saying R.I.P. George Floyd. It is his funeral, getting ready to start.
It is. It just, as I said earlier when I started the show, prayers for his family and those who loved him, and for our city where he was raised. And I believe that there is always a greater plan. That's just my personal belief. I believe there's a greater plan. And I believe it would be a shame if we do not find a way to do better. We just have to do better. And with that, my prayers, my heartfelt prayers and support go to him and to his family at this time. So, and it's starting, I think it started at 11. So it's going on right now. So those of you who are listening, whatever your faith is, if you please just send positive vibes, positive prayers to his family and to those who are celebrating his life today, I would greatly appreciate it, because they can use all the support they can get. And with that, we will sign off for the Rutledge Perspective today. Thank you all so much for listening. I really appreciate it, and we will see you next week.